Hi again, back for part 3 and hopefully the final part of the herringbone quilt experiment. I finished off last time having made the quilt top and was just about to start on the quilting and wasn't sure how I was going to film it. It's taken a bit of awkwardness. I've had to move my sewing table way out into the room, but I've managed to get my camera set up behind. And I've just done a little test video on some practice fabric because I want to use a totally new technique for quilting this because it's not an experiment enough already, and it seems to have filmed okay. The little preview on the camera looked like it was mostly in focus and getting the right part of the screen, so I think this could work. The machine's going to be way too noisy to talk over. And I don't think I can actually talk while I'm quilting. It's like, it takes too much concentration and I'll just make random noises probably if I try and talk while I'm doing it. I think what I'll do is I'll record it and then I'll find some music clip to play over it or something like that. Okay, so I've got my reasonably flat backing, and then on top of that I'm going to lay my batting and try and get that as flat as possible. If I was doing this for a full-size quilt I'd be like clamping it and stretching it and making sure it's exactly flat, but something this size doesn't need that. You can kind of control it enough to make sure no wrinkles get in. And then the quilt top, which I've ironed quite a bit to make sure it's as flat as I can possibly get it. It's not perfect, there's a few little puckers here and there, but they will quilt out, as they say. And then I have my jar of trusty safety pins, which are their special bent basting pins, just make it easier to get it in and out of the 3 thicknesses of fabric. And you start in the middle and basically just pin as many pins as you can possibly get in there. You just don't want anything to shift, because as soon as something shifts that's when you end up with a wrinkle and it just looks terrible. Because the better job you do at this point of the basting, the easier the quilting is. Okay, and there it is, all basted. This is sort of what I've got in mind for the quilting on the cushion. Because it's all straight lines and angles, I thought it'd be quite cool to do something really organic and rounded on it. And I've for ages been admiring Angela Walter's work. She does incredible improv quilting with lots of feathers and flowers and swirls and things, and thought this would be a good opportunity to try some of the techniques that she teaches. Certainly not up to her standard, but I'm not unhappy with what I've managed so far here. It's just playing and trying ideas. So I've been practicing on this little scrap piece just to get the idea of what I want to do. Actually, the really scary bit is I'm going to open up the very, very expensive Aurifil thread that I bought a while back and haven't been brave enough to actually use it on any projects. Time I used it. Mum, I hope you are paying attention to this lesson. Use the cool craft stuff you've got. quilting is done, and I think it looks really amazing. I'm very pleased with it. I shouldn't say that about my own work, but I am really pleased, really proud of this, because it's like new patchwork technique and stretching my quilting abilities, and I think I did pretty well with both of them. Back's ugly fabric, but it shows off the, you can see the quilting a bit better. I couldn't be bothered setting up the tripod again to show you the cutting, but I've trimmed this to square again. It lost a little bit of size in the quilting, which is normal, so it's now down to about 18 3/4 inches across. And the next step is to turn it into a cushion. I have cut a couple of pieces of fabric for the back of the cushion, which are the width of the cushion by about 3/4 of the width of the cushion. It's a pretty rough estimate. I'm going to put a hem on one side. So here's the nicely hemmed, well, I wouldn't say nicely hemmed, but hemmed edges, and you see how they overlap. And the nice thing about making a quilted cushion is I'm going to bind this like a normal quilt, so I don't have to do all that mucking around with sewing things wrong sides together and then turning it inside out, because all the raw edges are going to be covered by the binding anyway. So there's the back stitched on. Makes a nice envelope for the pillow to go in. Now all I've got to do is add the binding to cover that raw edge. Yeah, I kind of was listening to a podcast and sewing away happily and completely forgot the fact that I was going to film this part. So I've made the binding. I made a scrappy binding just with bits of the same fabrics I used in the quilt. If I'd thought ahead, I would have made all the strips on the quilt 2.5 inches instead of 2 inches, because 2.5 inches is a nice size for the binding, so I couldn't use the scraps from the quilt to make the binding. I had to cut new scraps, but that's okay. The effect is the same. This is just demonstrating why I have chosen to stitch this binding down by hand, because the fire is on. I've got a cosy chair, I can sit there and quietly hand sew, watch a video or something, and finish off the cushion. Finished cushion cover. Completely the wrong size cushion inner, but you get the idea. I think that came out quite good. So that's the herringbone cushion experiment all done. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to do all those nice likey, subscribey things you're supposed to do, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, parsnips, for another exciting video of some sort.